Welcome to the 1930s America. This is Life in the 1900s newspapers. Enough with the car horns. Hey, I'm walking here. Here's our paper, hot off the presses, the Boston Post, dated Tuesday, June 23rd, 1936. Along with our 1936 paper today, we will be looking at a few years later and focusing on the 1939 World's Fair. It will feel like you were actually there by looking at these home movies from 1939. The fair, along with the usual attractions at any fair, also had some very shocking ones that you would never see today at any fair. Like these mechanical ladies. So, it's 1939, and I'm assuming this is for adults only. The Living Magazine Covers booth. Well, let's buy a ticket and go inside. Oh my, oh me, they're topless. I hope you appreciate all the time it took me to blur out the naughty bits. Stay tuned for some more unusual things that were at the fair. But for now, let's get to our newspaper articles. It was the Great Depression, and they had a lot of work programs to put people to work. But some people, well, listen to this, just won't work. Boontown, New Jersey. Robert W. Hilbert, who said he would rather rot in jail than work on a relief project, is getting along nicely, relief officials said today, doing neither. "We can't make him work," said Ward Whitty, relief director. "He was supposed to work the first 3 days of last week, and he showed up for only 1 day on the job, where they're building a tennis court. He said he had to take his wife and 2 kids for a ride. He does what he wants to. He always was that way. Used to live off his father, who owned a lunch wagon. Honest is pretty bad." Romances taboo for proxy youth. Barnstable, June 22nd. Herbert Mansfield Jr. shook hands with the sheriff today, threw his arms around his mother, and gave her a great big kiss, and declared he was done with romance. "No more of that romantic stuff for me," said young Mr. Mansfield, former grocery store clerk, whose love for a girl led him to a proxy marriage and nearly a year in jail. Last June, the 22-year-old Herbert was in all kinds of difficulty. He had married, but the girl, who stood before the town clerk, Charles Thompson of Seekonk, as the vows were pledged, was not Vesta Jean Isherwood, 15, whom he loved and wanted to marry. Instead, she was Gloria Rego, 15, of Providence, a substitute bride. For weeks, while the authorities tried to straighten out the tangle, he was held, and then in November he started a jail term for conspiracy to obtain a false marriage license. Now, he was profuse in his thanks to Sheriff Lachlan M. Crocker when the latter called him to his office, looked over his papers, and told him he was free to walk out the door. Vesta Jean Isherwood, the girl he wanted to marry, wasn't waiting in the sheriff's office. Neither was little Gloria Rego. But there was someone else waiting for his freedom. He went directly to his mother's side, smiling brightly, and put his arms around her. To newspapermen standing by, he said, "No more romance for me. I'm going to make my mother happy now." He said his only immediate interest was a job that he'll go to at once.
Now what do you say if we form a new club and call it the He-Man Woman Haters Club? Now I think we ought to have a president. Now the man we elect must be the worst woman hater of us all. So I nominate Alfalfa because he hates women.
Band marathon dances here. The Senate yesterday passed to be engrossed the bill prohibiting marathon and similar endurance contests by an 18-8 vote. The measure now goes to the governor. Angelina's Lion a Day by Dorothy Hughes. When Bob asked how the stew happened to burn, Betty said she got absorbed in a mystery book. The 1939 World's Fair featured the World of Tomorrow, with many improvements for the housewife in the kitchen, and also and new inventions like a robot.
nothing. It's a paradise. No one who hasn't cooked over a wood stove by the light of a kerosene lamp can really appreciate what it all means. The steps, it would say.
The good old days, eh, Grandma?
Yes, and anybody who wants them can have my share.
This is the new electric dishwasher. That's keen. Bud and Dad would sure go for it. They're the official dish dryers. Tom?
And so, ladies and gentlemen, with a great deal of pride and pleasure, I present to you Electro, the Westinghouse Moto Man. Electro, come here. And here he comes, ladies and gentlemen, walking up to greet you under his own power. Stop. You see, all I need to do is to speak into this phone, and Electro does exactly what I tell him to do. Sometimes. But I don't see why I'm telling Electro's story when he's perfectly able to tell his own. So let's listen and see what Electro has to say to us today. All right, Electro, will you tell your story, please?
Who? Me?
Yes, you.
Okay, Toots. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be very glad to tell my story. I am a smart fellow, as I have a very fine brain of 48 electrical relays. It works just like a telephone switchboard. If I get a wrong number, I can always blame the operator.
Thank you.
And by the way, I see a lot of good numbers out in our audience today.
Electro, behave yourself.
Quiet, please. I'm doing the talking.
I'm sorry.
That's the most remarkable thing I've ever seen.
Boy, what a guard that guy'd make on my football team.
Now, Electro, a moment ago you were bragging about being able to count on your fingers. Do you remember that? Well, we're going to find out about that. Now, do you remember how many children were born at the same time to a certain family up in Canada? Do you remember that? All right, let's see if you do. Count them on your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5? Well, that's absolutely correct.
Why, he's almost human.
If he wasn't so big, I'd take him for an engineer.
All right, now, Electro, I know you enjoy these, and I'm really going to try to give you a nice pleasure out of these. So here you are. You got that? Now, hold on to it. You may now smoke this cigarette. Go on. Oh, yes, Electro, you do need a light, too, don't you? All right, here you are. And, folks, he's only 2 years old, too. Just learning.
Lars, Rolo, fix. Yes, ma'am. Rolo, get.
Yes, Rollo the robot, the chromium-plated butler, is just a daydream after all. But not so Rollo's little brother and sister robots, the millions of small mechanical servants that never ask for afternoons off, the amazing machines and gadgets that almost seem to think for themselves. The tiny clockwork brains and heat regulators on our kitchen stoves apparently do almost everything except read the cookbook. Thinking machines like this keep golden brown slices of toast from turning into slabs of charcoal and keep the coffee hot until we're ready to start dunking. Then there's a tea kettle that's been trained never to boil dry. When the water is gone, the kettle simply pulls out its own attachment plug. And here's a gadget that ought to rate a bow from every dog in the country. A Fido feeder that never forgets when the pup is dining home alone and the rest of the family is dining out. What's more, it tells him when to come and get it. You ever hear of anyone getting his lap caught in an elevator door? That can't happen here, because as long as there's anything in the way, this door can't close. Step back, please. There's plenty of room in the rear of the car. All right, then, don't step back. Just take a deep breath and hang on to yourself.
No matter how good you feel when you get up in the morning, if you come down to the breakfast table and happen to tackle a particularly vicious grapefruit, and in eating it, you get squirted in the eye, your whole day is spoiled. You're quite likely to go to the office, swear at the stenographer, and goodness sakes, anything can happen. The whole day is ruined. But if you wear my patented breakfast cap, you can overcome that annoyance. All you have to do is pull down the protective screen which is provided, and then you can eat a grapefruit without any trouble at all.
Did you know in the 1930s you could only buy certain things on a Sunday? Sold Canned Goods Sunday. Police of the Mattapan Station will seek summons in Dorchester Court this morning for 10 storekeepers in the Dorchester Mattapan District, charging them with selling canned goods on Sunday without a right to do so. Sunday afternoon, Captain Thomas F. Conley, Sergeant Donald Fitzpatrick, and Special Officers George Harnden and Louis Alsop quietly went through their division in plain clothes and made purchases of canned beans, shrimp, crab meat, vegetables, and soups, all to be used as evidence. The storekeepers to be summoned to the court for prosecution and before the licensing board for action. Each had some sort of Sunday license which enabled him or her to stay open on a Sunday for the sale of milk, ice cream, or confections only. Instead of limiting their sales to these products, the stores have been carrying on a regular weekday trade, police said, with nearby residents able to make any sort of purchase. Last night, police said they would carry on a vigorous campaign against these forbidden Sunday sales. They said Dorchester residents would have to confine themselves to Saturday shopping or else do without Sundays. Here's some prices of some groceries in our newspaper. White House evaporated milk, 4 cans for 25 cents. Sultana peanut butter, 2-pound jar for 25 cents. Corn Flakes, Kellogg's, or Post Toasties, 2 for 13 cents. In Submarine Wedding, clad in divers suits, Captain John C. Benson, 73 of San Francisco, and Miss Elizabeth Pardee, 57 of Chicago, were married far under the waters of Puget Sound, Seattle, by the Reverend Jesse D. O. Powers Wright. Here they are before descending for the ceremony. Here's another shocking exhibit that was at the 1939 fair. Can you imagine buying a ticket to watch the little people? Finds gorilla in bed with him. Chicago, June 22nd. A new queen to take charge of the primate house of the Chicago Zoological Gardens arrived today by lower berth from New York. She is Congo, 2.5-year-old gorilla, the zoo's first, and considered a bargain at $2,000. Last night, I had the diner chef cook Congo a lamb chop, said Edward H. Bean, director of the zoo. She enjoyed it a lot and insisted on taking it to bed with her. She slept in the berth over me, and when we tucked her in, she appeared content enough. In the night, however, she must have decided that she should have been given the lower berth, for when I woke up, there she was, asleep beside me, her head on my pillow, and the greasy lamb chop was still held in one fist.
Here all day, all day long. I've never seen anything like this in all my life. First, hey, where are you going? What's eating you? Hey, what have you got there? What? That dame must know something, or she wouldn't be running away like that. Make a note of that, Garrity.
Screen gossip. Little Miss Nobody. The baby star, Jane Withers, comes to the Keith Memorial Friday in her latest 20th Century Fox comedy, Little Miss Nobody, in which Jane Darrell, Ralph Morgan, Sarah Hayden, and Harry Carey are featured. Jane Withers was also at the 1939 World's Fair Parade.
nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love, my how they fly. Blue days all up and gone, nothing but blue skies from now on.
Jane Withers appeared on the Comet Cleanser commercials. We will end our time capsule video today with a look at the 1939 time capsule that was made and buried for the World's Fair in New York City. Be sure to watch for my next video where we will be in the Roaring 20s. Thanks for watching.
Time capsule of cupuli, deposited on the site of the New York World's Fair on September 23, 1938, by the Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company. If anyone should come upon this capsule before the year AD 6939, let him not wantonly disturb it, for to do so would be to deprive the people of that era of the legacy here left them. Cherish it, therefore, in a safe place.
5,000 years from now, the peoples of the future will look back on us as we look back on the early Egyptians and Babylonians. The time capsule down there is actually a message from our time to theirs. Those who open and study it will know more about us than any man living today.
But Jim, how in the world do you know it'll last so long?
Because the copper tools of the ancients have come down to us from even farther back. The capsule is made of a still better copper alloy called cupuli. It's hard as steel and equal to pure copper in resistance to corrosion.
Well, what I'm wondering is how anybody will know how to find it in the year, what was it, 6939?
How to find it, what's in it. In fact, everything about it was printed in the book of record of the time capsule. It's on permanent paper that's been distributed throughout the world. To libraries, museums, lamissaries, monasteries, temples, every safe place imaginable.
Well, who picked the stuff that was to go in it, Jim?
A committee, aided by authorities in every field of science and the arts. It's a complete record of our civilization.
Is this exactly like the capsule?
Yes, and it's cut away so you can see how it's packed. These side cases show you the variety of things in it.
Look, there's a woman's hand.
The ladies have to reveal a lot about us to future scientists.
It sure will. They'll think we're nuts.
Are these little reels the microfile?
Yes. It's hard to believe, but on these small reels of film are reproduced all these books, papers, and magazines. It's a record of 10 million words and 1,000 pictures.
So how will they read them?
A small microscope is included. But there are also instructions how to make a large reading machine. Also, how to make a motion picture projector for the 3 special newsreels.
I suppose cloth and things like that are in it, too.
Everything from samples of fabrics to a dozen different kinds of common seeds.
I bet a nickel I know something that isn't in it. Mickey Mouse.
You'd lose, Bud. Mickey Mouse, Dick Tracy, Barney Google, they're all there. Even toys and money. Why, the list of contents alone takes up 17 pages of fine print.
Boy, they weren't fooling when they made that capsule, were they?
It's the brains of the world done up in a small package. And it's the most permanent exhibit at the fair. It'll still be here when the rest of this place is nothing but dust.
That's remarkable.